this came about, because there's a lot of speculation and beginning called out for a lot of different reasons, is that Doug reached out to me, and Bryan actually he sent a note to the two of us and said, I got an idea. I want to review Steel Toe. What if we did a Takeover episode and it was just me and Bryan and we reviewed Steel Toe? So this was not my idea, but I loved it for a number of reasons. One, I needed a fucking day off because we were down in Florida. I was working all the goddamn time. And normally Wednesdays I'm consumed with WATP. It's my entire day leading up until 5 o'clock, and then we record. And then after that, I get dinner and the day's over. That's Wednesday for me. And when we're down in Florida at our other house and we're trying to get things set up and we're trying to enjoy ourselves and enjoy the pool and everything, I'm like, I can't do a WATP episode from here. It's too much. So those guys recorded the show on Sunday. Great. I'll do a live premiere Wednesday. We'll put it out Thursday morning like we normally do. This will be fan-fucking-tastic for me. So the reason why I've never reviewed Steel Toe is because there's so much hate for this guy on the internet that I knew I couldn't do a good enough job to appease these people. And based on the feedback I've seen from this episode, I was right. There's no way in hell you can hate these people enough for the haters of the show to agree that you hated them enough. And it's insane. This show is not about hating shows and burying shows as much as Johnny Cush thinks we're trying to ruin someone's show and get them knocked off the internet. It's a roast. It's a roast style show. There are varying degrees of how much I like the podcasters I'm roasting, for sure. And I'll be the first to admit, I probably got a little too personal on the Chad Zumach front, and it maybe brought down the quality of the show for a little bit. I think that's probably true, because this show is about funny first. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves, laughing at jerks. And the way that, and I said this, the Steel Toe Boring Show subreddit is nothing like Dabblers Anonymous. They're angry.
Yeah, not fun.
They're not fun. They're angry at this guy. They're not funny people themselves. They just want this guy's life ruined. Patrick Melton, who's been on the show, he was going after him for a while, trying to ruin their life. Like literally trying to get them arrested. Yeah. Trying to get their livelihood taken away from them. And I don't play by those rules. It's weird.
Well, maybe I'm rewording what you're saying, but if we're laughing at you and having a good time, why would we want you to go away?
Correct. So I never understood that. And also, I think that what goes around comes around. So I think it's a really bad thing for karma-wise to put that out there where it's like, I'm going to bury this guy and he's going to lose his career. It's like,
I doubt it's going to end there.
Yeah, it's going to come back at you. I mean, we saw this. Again, I'll reference this. Opie and Anthony, when they were doing Jocktober, they loved the pests back then. The pests would go after these radio shows. They have to take their Facebook pages down, and they'd be hooting and hollering, oh, look at what these guys are doing. This is great. And then the subreddit started to turn on them, and the pests started to turn on them, and now Opie still hasn't recovered from that. Jim Norton has kind of recreated himself to get away from it. Anthony has done everything that he can do to like build his own little walled-off garden. So that's the thing about wishing bad things on other people. It usually comes back at you. So it's not a good thing. And so I knew I couldn't do a good enough job to review Steel Toe, and it was proven because Doug and Bryan did a very thorough, methodical job. They covered everything that people complain about, as far as I could tell, because I read these things. And they did over an hour and a half. And they even brought on the Philly Fanatic to come on and try to give some counterbalance to it. They did a fantastic job. They have a different style than I do. They don't move along as quickly. That's one of the things about this show that I think makes it a quality program, is that we move things quickly along. We play the clip, we discuss it, we move on to the next clip. And so because of that, and I asked Doug, how many clips did you play? 25. That's how many clips I would normally have for a segment, for a long segment.
Right.
So they had the clips, they had their points, they both were well versed in Steel Toe, they knew the show, they understood what the problems were, but the people who were watching along live were not having it. It wasn't enough for them.
Well, they were doomed from the start, like you said.
Right. There was no way that anything they could have done outside of going to their house and burning it down with them inside it was going to be enough for the people who hate Steel Toe.
That still wouldn't be enough.
Right. You're like, oh, they're letting them escape out the window.
The fire's not hot enough.
Push them back in the house. The kids are escaping. So again, I knew there was nothing you could do, and the people who ate Steel Toe came to that show and didn't enjoy what Bryan and Doug did. Anyone who doesn't care about Steel Toe, is a fan of WATP, who watched that show, went, pretty good episode. Those guys did a good job. Again, different pace than what we do here.
Sure.
But I would say the vast majority of people who listen to WATP enjoy Doug from Who's Right. He's one of the top guys. And Bryan Johnson from Tell 'em Steve Dave whenever they come on the show. They're always fantastic.
Absolutely.
Great guests. Okay. So Aaron goes on his show the next day, and I'm watching this. And I wanted to see how Aaron was going to address this. Because, I'm going to reach out to him. I haven't talked to Aaron since this. I'm going to reach out to him because when I announced that WATP is going to be reviewing Steel Toe, he immediately took to Twitter, got on the offensive, and started posting things like, well, in a private chat, Carl said blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you don't even know what we're doing yet. And you're already trying to
get out in front of it.
Not only get out in front of it, but reveal things from a private conversation.
Right.
It wasn't even that big of a deal, but it just shows the mentality. And I'm like, oh, that's not good, Aaron. That's not a good look for you, buddy.
It's more of a stuttering John thing.
Yeah, it was kind of fucked up a little bit. So I was already like, okay. But then Aaron goes on his show the next day, and he's out of the Dabbleverse. He's taken himself out of the Dabbleverse. He doesn't want to address us. He doesn't want the people listening to this show right now, he doesn't want you listening to his show. He's made this very clear. Okay. So he goes on his show, and he hasn't listened to the episode, but he's heard things about it. And it's funny because what he's heard is from the very people who despise him. So the people who didn't think that they went hard enough at him are the people he's getting his information from when he says that show was a flop and everyone hated it. And so this is Aaron's response.
And apparently people were upset. They didn't like it. The show was terrible. The common complaint I heard from people was there was no content. It was just them going, he sucks, I hate him.
Okay, so I'll just point this out real quick. Completely not true. Like I said, there are 25 clips. And when they were going through, I guess they do these prize shows. I should get the clip from Doug. I don't have it on the board. But they played this clip where Aaron's setting up, like, if you donate this amount of money, you'll get put into an auction or you'll get put into a drawing and you might be able to win a $5 gift card for this place or a $10 thing at that thing. It's like, give us $25 and you could win $5 off at that. I'm like, what the fuck? And it got more and more convoluted as he's going through the whole thing. Anyway, that's not my point. My point is they played all the clips. They laid out their case. They played all the begging clips people complain about with this show. It's nonstop. There were supercuts about begging, supercuts with Aaron Himmelholtz's and all of his crutches. They had this all covered. They did an amazing job. The biggest complaint that I got was from Doug and Bryan, who said, Carl, how the fuck do you do this twice a week? This is a lot of fucking work. That was the biggest complaint I got on anything. So Aaron's going, yeah, they didn't even have anything to say because I'm amazing. So there's no way they could even say anything.
And it's like, well, yeah, you have to, because the fact of the matter is, not to toot our own horn, we do a really good show here. You can't play clips of it and go, look at how bad at broadcasting these guys are. If anything, the one thing I do better than anybody in any realm we've been associated with ever is that I'm probably the best broadcaster in it, the best professional broadcaster.
Certainly the most humble.
And the most humble. You can make an argument for Bubba, I think, and if you consider us, I guess we're part of Compound, so yeah, Anthony, obviously a better broad.
Oh, well, that's nice of him to say. He's not as good as, like, Bubba the Love Sponge.
Or my boss.
Been in major markets and was on Sirius XM on the Howard Channel for all those years. Maybe he's not as good as Opie and Anthony, the second biggest morning show of all time. Maybe. Okay, I'll give it to those two guys. When he said Bubba, I was like, oh, shit, he's putting himself in a category. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Podcaster than I am. But after those two, there's nobody who could, if Bubba got back on the air today, or if Anthony got on the air today, they'd have success. If we got back on the air today, we'd have a lot of success. There's nobody else in that world that can say the same thing. So if you're going to do a show like those two were, you basically have to be creepy Reddit monster, I hate this guy, and that's not what that audience is looking for. So I was really happy.
That is what that audience is looking for. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the WATP audience per se, but they weren't that at all. They actually played clips and brought up good points.
To see that bombed so horribly, not surprised, But I was very happy to see that it bombed and also that Carl wasn't part of it. That was very cool. It's a level of respect that I
thought this was the one that you were like in on or whatever with potato.
I was going to do something with the potato, but we got COVID. It was supposed to be done Thursday. I told him, I said I can push it back to Friday, which also wouldn't have worked. I didn't realize how sick I was still going to be Friday. But he just, somebody said he did a bit trying to make it look like an interview anyway, and it didn't.
See, this is the other thing that annoys me. When you're going to go on and respond to this, and granted, he wanted this to be a quick aside. He wasn't going to delve into it, but he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
I hate this.
You can't use hearsay.
Well, then somebody told me that like it wasn't very good and they did a thing and it didn't work. Dude, either listen to it, pull the clips, and explain why it didn't work, or don't address that part of it. You could say that people were disappointed in it. You could say that there was a lot of people who didn't care for it. I agree with that. I understand that part of it. But to bring up specific examples, I'm like, I didn't hear this, but somebody said, or I heard someone whisper something. It's like
trying to make it look like an interview anyway, and it didn't look great. But I'm not going to pretend I'm not happy that it went horribly wrong. Gray Duckling with $4.99 says, but I love your chair. It is a nice chair.
All right. So that was a weird response from Aaron. And thankfully his co-host is just like, oh, and you're humble. Like, dude, what are you doing? It's not a good look. People don't like that. Here's the thing. Howard was able to pull that off. Opie tries to do this still. I'm fucking better than everyone.
Right.
They try. Johnny Cush does this. You're trying to match wits with me. You can't. I'm the best at this. Howard could do it because he could back it up with the audience, with the markets. He was putting on an amazing show.
Yeah.
People loved it.
It was original.
It was original.
No one was as bombastic as him. No one was tooting their own horn like him. So it was refreshing. So
it made sense that he would do it. When guys like Aaron Imholt, I'm not saying it's easy to build what he built, but it's not that impressive. There's a lot of people who have done it, myself included. And when he goes out, he's just like, I'm obviously the best broadcaster there is outside of two radio legends. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. Relax.
I mean, he's like yelling from a mountaintop of haters.
Right. So the other point I wanted to make about the show is when they got into the Stuttering John stuff, Bryan and Doug, and they recorded this a few days before, but they were talking about how I was getting chummy with Stuttering John. We were going to meet for a beer, and that was jumping the shark and all this stuff. I'm just like, hey, idiots! I was never going to get a beer with Stuttering John. I don't like this thing, and Kevin Brennan tries to pull this shit too, where it's like, oh, now you guys, I was all at work. You guys are buddies. No, not the case at all. I don't want to be in the same room as Stuttering John unless we're there to roast him. I don't want to be anywhere near that guy.
Who are these podcasts?